Chapter 15, Treatment of Substance Use Disorder, Part 1. In this video, we'll look at other treatment models and modalities, excluding 12-step and self-help groups. Another theoretical model that beginning substance use disorder counselors should be familiar with is the ABCDE model. Originally, it was designed by a man named Albert Ellis. It's part of the basic thinking of cognitive behavioral therapy or rational emotive behavioral therapy, both cognitive models of thinking. And the ABCDE, or sometimes it's only called the ABCD model, is often used in things like anger management, but it's very helpful for substance use disorders and many other problems. So here's a quick run through the model and an example taken from anger management, but that could be applied to other issues. In this model, there's an activating event. Something happens to me. Not something I do, but something happens to me. Let me give you a slightly embellished example of this. Let's say that I was working at a particular place in town and I have to drive across town to another location to do something. As I come to the traffic light and begin to make my turn, someone in a brand new car, let's call it a Lexus, goes barreling through the red light, almost hits me. I have to swerve to get out of their way, and they go on through the light. The activating event, them running the light and almost hitting me, has the consequence that they have made me angry. So let's say that since they made me angry, I decide to teach them a lesson. I'm in my car, I get in the inside lane and I drive as fast as I can, and I'm going to catch up with this person who has done this to me. I move my old beat-up work van slightly ahead and into their lane, forcing them off the road into the dirt. And I hop out of my old beat-up work van, run to the back, and remove from it a large piece of pipe that I used to carry in that van to assist people who didn't behave correctly in doing the thing I wanted them to do. And I look at this brand new Lexus, and it's July and it's really hot outside, and I say, I know what is wrong. Obviously, this person's air conditioner isn't working, and as a result, their brain has become overheated, and they can no longer think rationally. That's why they went through the red light and almost killed me and made me angry. So I'm going to be helpful. I'm going to go back and with my piece of pipe remove all the surplus glass along the side of their car and cool the idiot off. See what's going on here? As I'm about to do this, the person jumps out of the car, and the first thing they say to me is, I am so sorry. I am so sorry. I just got a call from the hospital. My mother is in the intensive care unit, and they say that she's dying. And if I don't get there in the next 15 minutes or so, I may not get to be able to say goodbye to her. How do I feel now? I feel a little sorry for this man. Wait, no, that's not right. That can't be right. He went through the light. He almost killed me. He made me angry. Why am I not angry here? What we discover as we work through this model, and for many people it's very difficult to accept at first, but once you recognize it, between the activating event, what the person did, and the consequence, how I felt, there's an intervening belief, my belief about why this happened, why this person did this to me. And my belief about why it happened is a direct cause of the consequence. So if I believe that he was reckless, went through the light, disrespected me, I have every right to be angry. But if I believe that he was hurrying to get to the hospital because his mother was dying, I feel sorry for him. Now, does it matter which is true? Will I ever know? Probably not. I can choose which belief I have, and when I choose to believe the poor guy's in a rush to get to the hospital, I'm not angry. He didn't make me angry. I angered myself as a result of my beliefs about what's going on. I can choose to believe he's disrespectful and be angry and get in a fight, or I can choose to believe he's in a hurry to get to the hospital and I'm not angry and we both go on our way. The key in this model is to recognize that my belief causes the consequence, the emotion I'm experiencing, not the other person's actions. So whenever I become angry, I have the choice. I can be angry, act out, and pay the consequence, or I can engage in disputing, arguing. I can ask myself, what other belief could I have? And as a result of that other belief, I may get a different result. My questioning, my belief, my disputing can result in a new effective belief. That effective new belief alters the way I'm feeling. So whenever this happens, I have every opportunity to change my belief, and I can now have a new belief. This effective new belief creates a new consequence, how I can feel if I choose to. While it's a difficult lesson to learn sometimes, this is an important one. Once I realize that nobody ever makes me angry, I choose to anger myself when they don't do what I want them to do, then I can go through life without getting angry. Now, sometimes stupid people do stupid things, and I can be angry at them, or I can simply say to myself, there's another idiot, lots of them around, and what are idiots supposed to do? Stupid things. Let me give you another quick example from my own experiences of this ABCDE model. I was teaching a class in a large auditorium, sloped seating, kind of theater seating, and I was giving this wonderful lecture, probably the best, most brilliant lecture of my career. I could see all the students just spellbound, and suddenly this one woman sitting in the very front row slams her book closed and grabs her things and goes running up the aisle, slamming the door behind her. I became very angry. What did this woman do that for? What do you think? She got a text, maybe a hot date? Did I say something to offend her? What happened here? Well, I determined that the next week, when I saw her, I was going to have a talk with her, tell her that was unacceptable. If she was going to leave in the middle of my lecture, she needed to sit in the back right by the door. Better yet, if she wasn't going to stay for the whole thing, she could just not come to class at all. As I'm unlocking the door the next week, the woman comes up to me and says, "Professor Miller, I'm so sorry about last week." I'm thinking to myself, you should be sorry, lady. She said, I was running late last week. I stopped at that coach, that food thing out on the street. I probably shouldn't have had that day-old fish taco, but suddenly my stomach got really upset. Suddenly, now that I have a new belief about why she jumped up and ran out of my classroom, it's no longer she disrespected me, but rather what happened here is that she had a upset stomach. I'm glad she left in a hurry. I don't want to have to clean that up or smell it the rest of the evening. See, my belief about why she left changes the consequence, whether I'm angry at her, upset at her, or whether I'm really sorry for her. The result is that whenever something like this occurs, I have a chance to think it over, come up with another effective belief by disputing what I'm thinking. Mostly it's I find that I get upset and angry, or have in the past, when someone didn't do what I wanted them to do, or did something I didn't want them to do. And when I simply accept that they're different people and they may behave differently than I do, that changes everything. So if you practice this model, you will very soon learn that no one can push your buttons and control your feelings. They may do things you don't like. You may have to set boundaries and shove them out of your life or reduce your contact with them. But you don't have to be hurt or angry. As counselors move through their training, there are other curriculum they may be called on to use. We find the best results come when all the counselors, and usually there's a staff of counselors delivering this treatment, mainly in group settings, to their clients. The best results come when there's a curriculum and each counselor sticks to the curriculum. There are many of these that are available free from SAMHSA, Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration, and you can go to the samhsa.gov site. Now, not all evidence-based practices are equal. Some are better than others, but two that I've looked at and used that may be very helpful, and if your program adopts these, they can be very useful. The Matrix is a curriculum that has many handouts designed originally for treating stimulant use disorders, but here in California, the majority of people who come to treatment are there because of methamphetamine use. Stimulants are the big problem. And even those people with an alcohol or heroin usage often have been dabbling in stimulant drugs also. There's also an interesting one, and I think we're going to see more use of it in the future, possibly more use of it in online counseling. But there's a brief counseling for marijuana dependency. We used to think that marijuana smoking or use did not result in any kind of withdrawal symptoms. What we found is that it does, and that the major withdrawal symptom for marijuana is an increase in anxiety. People believe they're smoking marijuana to reduce their anxiety, but as soon as they stop smoking it, their anxiety returns in an even worse way. Well, the BCMD curriculum provides a method of treating those people who have a specific marijuana issue. We noticed that often the courts would send people to drug treatment, and we would have some hardcore heroin users, some chronic alcoholics, and a few people whose only drug of choice was marijuana. And they really felt they weren't getting anything out of treatment because they weren't drug users or alcoholics. They just smoked a little weed and had gotten caught. This specific curriculum may be helpful to them to understand the problems from marijuana and to decide whether they want to try to control their usage, reduce it, or discontinue it altogether. This will be a quick review of the various therapies that might be used in treatment. Some of them are much more common than others. Most substance use disorder treatment programs combine a number of these different therapies. Seeing these in a classroom, reading a chapter in a book that covers these various therapies is not the same as getting experience in them. But this will at least give you a roadmap to the journey you're going to take if you're becoming a counselor and learning various therapies. One that's been tried with, I think, limited success is aversion therapy. You can shock people. You can give them a drug that a pill that they take, that when they drink alcohol they get violently ill. You can do things like arrest them and lock them up in prison, all things to punish their use in an effort to get them to stop. But one of the fundamental characteristics of substance use and behavioral addictions is that after a period of use, the brain adapts to it, begins to demand it. And chronic alcoholics, given a drug to make them nauseous and vomit, will either stop taking the medication, spit it out if they can, or drink a little alcohol until they get violently ill and throw up, and then they will be able to begin drinking again. So generally, aversion therapy is not used to any great extent. There's a thing called 12-step facilitation, which is common in substance use disorder treatment programs. Therapy may last a few hours each day, maybe 28-day or 30-day rehab, but what happens afterwards? Well, the follow-up, the continuing care, and an addiction is a chronic disease, just like diabetes. You got to take your meds or your insulin. So what's your ongoing treatment? Attending 12-step groups. The counselor in this system would teach the steps, not work them with the clients, but teach them what the steps are. Part of the shift from moving from the land of addiction to recovery land is you need new behavioral skills. So certain skills, how to, I've had clients who've never been on a date or never had sex without having drugs and alcohol in their system and are scared to death. They need something to take the edge off. So they may need to learn social skills. Behavioral skills are often based on learning theory. That is, you learn a new skill, you practice it over and over until it becomes your default setting. Otherwise, under times of stress, people revert to their old method, their old pattern, and that would be to drink alcohol or pick up drugs. Another thing that can be done as a therapy is motivational enhancement, sometimes called motivational interviewing, and it's covered in another place in the textbook and in the videos. But finding ways to help the client develop a plan for what their life would look like without the drugs or alcohol. There's also some use of medical replacement therapy. It's especially helpful for something like nicotine. Smoking, the patch, reduces the craving and gets the person to reduce their consumption. It's also been used for drugs that have a severe withdrawal syndrome, such as heroin or the opiates. Another important therapy that's used in treatment is to teach relapse prevention. Relapse is best conceived of as a process, not an event. Often people begin to think about relapse. It starts in the mind as they begin to think, well, maybe I could just do it one more time, or they begin to experience cravings. So talking about cravings is a normal part of the recovery process. And support systems. How does your support system encourage you to stay clean and sober, or how does it encourage you to pick up and use again? We tend to do the same things as the people we spend the most time with. So it's important to consider relapse prevention. One of the models I particularly like is Marlotte's discussion of how urges, cravings, and there may be a distinction in there, but they are kind of like surfing the waves. What happens is the urge, the craving goes up and up and up. And most people feel, I can't stand it, and I'll just do it once, and they give in, and they do their drug or drink one beer, and of course after one beer they want more, and after one drug use they're on a run. Every time you give in to a craving, you reinforce it. If you can approach relapse prevention more like surfing the waves, they go up. If you ride them long enough, the wave will go down, and eventually you're standing on the beach safe. So that's very important. Another distinction that we probably should look at, we don't talk enough about, is the distinction between willpower and won't power. Lots of people think that recovery from drug use or alcoholism is simply having enough willpower not to do it. That's not what willpower is at all. Willpower is making yourself do something unpleasant now for a future benefit. I found that when I get up in the morning, I have 1.5 ounces worth of willpower. If I am going to get anything done today, I need to clean the cat box first thing. If I need to pay bills, I better do it right away. Because if I get started on a writing project, the day will disappear, and I will never have gotten to those unpleasant things I didn't want to do. People find that It's a very different skill they need to go to a gym than it is to do the exercises once they are. Now, won't power is very different. Uh, as I walk by the kitchen each day, I would swear that that chocolate cake on the counter there is calling my name. David, come get some more cake. And won't power is not doing something pleasant now, which will have negative consequences in the future. So won't power would be don't stop at the bar on the way home just to say hi because you will end up drinking. Whereas willpower is making yourself do something that you didn't really want to do, like go to a 12-step meeting. Learning to apply these two can be very helpful. There's a saying in recovery circles, HALT, which is a way of understanding relapse triggers. HALT describes hungry, angry, lonely, and tired. One way of seeing this is inside and outside triggers. And so if you understand that physical sensations, hunger, and loneliness, being tired, all of those kinds of things, internal and external, can be triggers that might lead you to relapse. So you want to get enough sleep, you want to make sure you eat and drink water, and you also want to reach out for positive connections. Another way of looking at this problem of relapse is cognitively. We think about unhelpful thoughts, and many people have lots of unhelpful thoughts. I'm either perfect or I'm no good, black and white thinking. I must do this and I shouldn't do that, and those sorts of things. Talked elsewhere about the recovery lifestyle and the culture of recovery, but for many people this is such a novel understanding that they really need to study it to see how the culture they've been living is different from the culture they will want to live in recovery. There's some other treatment approaches that people should be aware of. Therapeutic communities were back in the early days. There's still a few in existence. The idea here is that just like AA and NA began as self-help groups meeting in kitchens, therapeutic communities would get a building where people could live, a kind of halfway house, and the people who were in the program graduated and became the staff. So in therapeutic communities, the residents really had a large part in running it. There's still a few of these models around, but as insurance came in, rather than wanting a group of addicts to rent an apartment and all live together and try to keep each other clean, insurance and other funding sources wanted to see professionals running the program. There's been an increase in new media, things like Facebook and other types of online things, distance counseling. This has exploded as a result of the coronavirus, but it's been coming for a long time. Some people can't make it to meetings either physically or distance-wise. They're in remote areas. And so in the future, I think we're going to do a lot more with distance, with telephonic and video conferencing and so on. There are web-based programs that people can download an app that will send them reminders, positive affirmations, and so on. And I think we're just beginning to develop web-based treatment approaches. There's also an important adjunct, even in secular programs, often spiritual, faith-based sorts of things, reinforcing people's connection with whatever they believe their higher power is, can be very helpful. Meditation, and I think most people misunderstand meditation. It's not about sitting chanting, though some people do that as part of their meditation practice. Meditation is really about just clearing your mind and thinking deeply about things. Mindfulness is about living in the moment, not having your mind go running off into the past. Why did this have to happen, or the future? And it's very important to understand stress, the role it plays in our lives, how to reduce it, how to manage it. Stress isn't all bad. You know, you need a certain amount of stress hormones in your muscles to help them move so you can get out of bed in the morning. But if the amount of stress you have through the day becomes excessive, that can be harmful. So learning to manage stress or reduce it is another important treatment approach. Other treatment approaches or activities include clean and sober events. Many people have never been to a social event without drinking or using. There are clean and sober dances and parties and New Year's Eve without alcohol or drugs. Many people don't really know how to have fun. If you didn't learn to play and have fun as a child, and many people in recovery didn't or didn't correctly, you may not know how to have fun without using drugs, alcohol, or sex. So learning to enjoy things, learning to focus on fitness and well-being, smoking cessation can be an important part of a recovery program, and sometimes weight loss is also a part of people's recovery of trying to get into shape and feel better about themselves and feel healthier. This is the point in the class where I would normally spend some time discussing the ASI, the Addiction Severity Index. You can find a free copy on the ASI Training Edition, a paper one you can print out and take a look at. But there's another whole set of videos that I put up on YouTube that is used in our class on the core functions, the job duties of a drug counselor. Assessment in substance abuse is typically very different than it is in mental health. In mental health, we are looking at impairments in order to arrive at a diagnosis. In substance abuse, we pretty well have the diagnosis up front, a drug or alcohol problem or a behavioral addiction. We are trying to assess for what parts of the person's life have been damaged. And so this ASI is either a paper or online assessment of how has the drug using or alcohol using experience affected their relationships, their work, their time in jail, their physical health, all of those other aspects. And do they need more education? Do they need job training, etc.? So it's also looking at life skills they will need to learn in order to maintain a clean and healthy lifestyle. For more information, please visit thecounselorsoapbox.com blog, where you will find articles on mental health, substance abuse, and having a happy life. The David Joel Miller fiction and nonfiction books are available on Amazon.